Hello everyone, today I'm going to teach you about options. So in this tutorial I'm going to tell you what is an optional, why we use it, what are the ways to handle an optional variable and what we should not do with non-optionals. So before that let me just give a very brief introduction about optionals. Options are introduced in Swift where they were not available in Objective-C. The main use of optional variables are they prevent them from crashing and makes the developer life very easy. So let us proceed with these questions. So what is an optional? Optionals give the ability to a variable to contain either a non-nil value or a nil value, whereas non-optional variables should contain a non-nil value to prevent crash. So this means an optional can be applied to a variable which can have either a value or a non-nil value or a nil value at some point of time. So the second one is why we use it. We use it when we are not sure that a particular variable gives a nil value or a non-nil value at some point of time in our application. If the value is nil, then we can handle them using few methods to prevent app crash. So the third one is ways to handle it. Optional unwrapping, Nil-Coalescing, force unwrapping. The third one, force unwrapping, it is not a suggested one and the developers are recommended to use it only when they are sure that the variables can't be nil at any point of time. And the fourth one is what we should not do with non-optionals. So I'm going to explain you with logics about the optional variables. So let us start now. So this is a normal variable of type string and it contains a string value of David. So this variable becomes an optional variable when you add a question mark after the type. So this now becomes an optional variable where if it is not having a question mark, then this means that it is a non-optional variable. So non-optional variables at any point in your application should contain a value. It can never be nil. For example, I am giving nil here and I am trying to print it. So it will throw an error. Nil cannot initialize specified type string. So you're able to see that, right? So it is throwing error. So non-optional variables can never be nil, whereas an optional variable can be nil, and even whereas an optional variable can be nil. So there are this is the difference between optional and non-optional variables, and there are and the second one is why we use it. The main reason we go with an optional variable instead of a non-optional variable is like what I said before. You when you're when you're hitting a service and getting a response from the server, uh, the response may be nil at times or it may contain value at times. So you may not be sure whether if it is having a value or if it is having a nil value. So at that point of time, you can use optional variables. So this optional variable has the ability to contain a nil value and it has few methods to check whether this optional variable has a non-nil value or nil value. If it is a non-nil value, you can skip the conditions, and if it is a if it is a nil value, you can skip the condition, and if it is a non-nil value, you can proceed further. So I'm going to explain you the ways to handle the option variables. The first method is option unwrapping. So we can use optional unwrapping to unwrap this optional variable. So what this method does is, this will you are checking if this person variable is a if this person variable contains a non-nil value or a nil value. If it contains a non-nil value, it will take that value into this name variable, name constant, and it will proceed further. That means it will print that value. Else if this person variable contains a nil value, it will check if it is nil, it will go to the else condition, it will print nil value encountered. You are able to see it here, right? It has printed like what I told. So I'm going to give David now, so you will get David here, because it will check it is not nil, it will assign that into this name constant, and that I'm printing that name here. So we have got David here. So the second way to handle is, so this is the second way to handle it, using godlet statement. Here what godlet statement does is, it is same like if let. It will check if this person is having a non-nil value, and if it is a non-nil value, it will take that value into that constant and it will proceed further. If it is a nil value, it will just go to this else condition and it will return out of the function. It will not proceed further with any lines of commands after that. Whereas when it comes to if let condition, if it is a nil value, then it will go to the else condition and it will execute the other lines of commands which are under this else condition. Whereas when it comes to godlet, it will not execute any line of code further if it encounters a nil value. So I'll print, I'll call this method now. So you can see David printed twice. Yes, because it is a non-nil value, so it printed here first and second it printed here. Now let us try giving nil value. It will print nil value encountered, and it will not print anything because it encountered a nil value here, so it just returned out of the function. So the one more way to handle this optional variable is, you can check if person is not equal to nil, then you can give a print to. You can check this if person value is not equal to nil. You can use this method also, but this method and this method will be more uh, flexible to use than using this method. It will just check if this variable is nil or if it is having a value, and if it is nil it will exit, else it will proceed further with the lines of commands inside that condition. So one more way of handling is Nil-Coalescing. So it is nothing but giving default value. It is nothing but giving a default value. It will check, you can check if this person variable is nil or not. If it is nil, this default will be assigned to this name constant and it will proceed further. So this is another way of handling it. So so far I have mentioned four ways. First one is using if let, second one is using god let, and third one is just checking if that optional variable is nil or not, and fourth one is using Nil-Coalescing, which works with default value. So I'm going to give a value here now. So you could see David prints 4 times. You see that, right? So these are the 4 ways to handle option variables. And here I have mentioned one more thing, what we should not do with non-optionals. So non-optionals are nothing but let person1 is equal to Sam. As like I told you already, this becomes option variable only when you add a question mark after the type. Until then it is a non-option variable. Sometimes we may not know whether a variable is optional or non-optional. We may think that it is an option variable and we'll use a float method. We'll use iflet method on a non-optional variable which is not at all recommended to. It will throw a compile time error. Even after getting this error, at times we'll try to optionally downcast this non-optional variable into an optional variable. This will unnecessarily produce some warnings, though it will not crash the app or it will not give any runtime errors. It will give some warnings, which is also not needed, which can be avoided. So these methods should be used. I mean, these if-let conditions should be used only on an option variable, where these things should not be used as non-option variable. You can just access the non-option variable as like how it is. So you get Sam printed here, right? So these are the 4 ways to handle an optional variable. One more thing I forgot to explain is about force unwrapping the optional variables. I'll explain it now. So this value variable is a non-optional variable, and this value 1 variable is also a non-optional variable. I am assigning this value 1 into this value into this value 1 variable. So as these both are non-optional variables, I'm able to do this. When I make this value as an optional variable, it will ask me to unwrap this optional variable to assign that value into the value one. So I'm forcefully unwrapping it, saying that it is having value at any point of time. It will have value, but that is not correct. It may have value or it may not have value. That is where you will use option variables. So for example, I'm giving nil value here, it will crash. You can see, yes, execution was interrupted. It will give runtime error, it will crash the app. So don't forcefully unwrap it. Instead of forcefully doing this, we have these 4 ways to handle optional variables, which are the safest and best ways to work with optional variables. Don't ever do this thing, it is not recommended. So tutorial for today is over. If you like this video, please click on the like button and as well as on the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye.